Taoiseach, can you tell us, Taoiseach, is Monsieur Barnier your second preference, and will you be voting for him today?
We're no voting today. First of all, very pleased to be here in Brussels today. 4 meetings, one with the new interim Austrian Chancellor, who's the outgoing Finance Minister. Also a meeting with President Macron in a moment to sign our joint letter on the Celtic Interconnector, a meeting of EPP party leaders earlier on, and going in this evening to a informal dinner with the heads of state and government of the European Union to talk about who's going to fill the new Commission presidency and Council presidency. So first of all, on the Celtic Interconnector, the Celtic Interconnector is a really good news story for Ireland. We're proposing to build a electricity interconnector between Ireland and France. So that'll be good in terms of climate action, in terms of energy security, and also helping us to bring down the cost of electricity for consumers. So Ireland and France are signing a joint letter seeking 60% EU funding for the project, with commercial revenues picking up the rest.
Where?
Between the northwest of France and the southeast of Ireland.
Taoiseach, what are the questions you have for Maria Bailey?
Just in relation to Maria Bailey, I'll be meeting her before the end of the week, and I'd like to have that meeting and hear her story. I'm not going to ask her questions through the media. I'll do that when I meet her during the week, and that's the appropriate thing to do. On the dinner this evening, as you'll be aware, the terms of office of President Juncker and President Tusk are coming to an end. They've been very strong supporters of Ireland, very good for Ireland, very good to Ireland, but their terms are now coming to an end. So I want to ensure that whoever gets the job of President of the Commission and whoever gets the job of President of the Council understands our concerns and will continue to help me to promote Ireland's interests when it comes to Brexit and other matters for the next 5 years.
You've very
publicly backed Manfred Weber in the past. Is that commitment still 100%, or have the results this weekend changed the scenery a little bit on the issue?
That commitment stands. Had a very good meeting earlier on with the EPP party leaders, and also met Manfred Weber. I'm somebody who believes in a more democratic Europe, and that means that the result of the European elections should be reflected in who we elect or appoint as President of the European Commission. And the EPP has won the most seats in the European Parliament elections, and our candidate for that position is Manfred Weber, who again has been to Ireland many times, has been very supportive of Irish interests. I'm also realistic in the sense that I know that the EPP doesn't have enough seats on its own to form a majority, nor can a majority be formed without us. So what we'll have to do is get together with the Social Democrats and also talk to the Greens, the Conservatives, and also the Liberals, and may need to bring 1 or 2 of them on board as well. And that's going to involve, of course, a compromise. But being the largest group, the most important position, the President of the European Commission, I believe should come to our group, and our candidate for that position is Manfred Weber.
Taoiseach, how worried are you about some of the rhetoric noises coming out of the UK calling for no deal? The Brexit Party wants no deal. They did very well in the UK elections.
They did. There's no question about the fact that the Brexit Party did very well in the European elections in Britain. So did all of the Remain parties. If you add up their support, it's slightly higher in fact. But I think what's really significant, and I hope this has been noticed in Britain, is the result of the European elections in Northern Ireland, where for 40 years there have been 2 unionists and 1 nationalist. That is no longer the case. There is 1 unionist, 1 Alliance Party MEP and 1 nationalist. So 2 out of 3 of the MEPs elected in Northern Ireland supporting the European Union and supporting the backstop. And I hope that hasn't been missed as a fact by the British government and the wider British people.
What do you make of Jeremy Hunt's suggestion that perhaps the DUP and the ERG should take part in negotiations if he, for example, were appointed leader?
Well, that's very much hypothetical. It's going to be for the new Prime Minister, whenever they're elected, to decide how they structure their negotiating team.
And would you be concerned about the pressure of no deal in October, that they will push again to reopen the backstop and reopen the withdrawal agreement?
Well, I think there is a growing risk of no deal. As I said a few days ago, there's a possibility that the new British Prime Minister may try to repudiate the withdrawal agreement. There's also a possibility, of course, that there may be a new British government that might follow a different course, a more European course. I can't predict either of those things. What I can say is that the European Union and Ireland will stand firm in our position that there can't be a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and we need a legal treaty guarantee of that.
In the Dáil today, Heather, hopefully he's taking your slot at Liam's questions. Very critical of Maria Bailey, if not by name, saying that people need to take more personal responsibilities rather than fueling Ireland's blame culture. What's your view?
I heard what Minister Humphreys had to say today in the Dáil, and I think a lot of people in Ireland would identify that and agree with what she had to say.
Taoiseach, a former member of the Defence Force, Scott Berry, gave a number of interviews today. He said that the Defence Force has been dismantled and demoralised by this disastrous government policy. He's also quite critical of your Minister, Paul Keogh. Should there be a dedicated ministry? Do you have any response to his comments? And secondly, has Mary been embarrassed you and again?
Well, first of all, I heard former Cabinet Berry's interview this morning, and it was certainly a stinging criticism, and I think sometimes government needs to listen to criticism and sometimes take it on board. But I would say a few things in response. First of all, we are investing in our defence forces. An extra 50 million is going in this year, and none of it is being handed back. It's going into new vessels, new aircraft, new equipment, better barracks, and better pay and pensions for our defence forces staff. We have an agreement with the public sector unions that applies to the Defence Forces as well, and that provides full pay restoration for almost all staff by the end of next year, and that is being implemented. And also the Public Sector Pay Commission is looking specifically at specific issues related to Defence Forces allowances and conditions. I know there is some suggestion that that report is being published today and that it's some kind of link to elections. That's totally not the case. The report hasn't been distributed among Cabinet members as yet, and won't be discussed or agreed probably for another 2 weeks at this stage. In relation to Minister Keogh, I have absolute support and absolute confidence in Minister Keogh. He's a minister at the Cabinet table and has the same weight as any other minister at the Cabinet table. It may be the case that he doesn't have a vote, but we haven't had votes at the Cabinet in probably 2 decades at this stage, so that's neither here nor there. To set up a standalone dedicated Department of Defence would, of course, or a standalone Cabinet level Department of Defence would, of course, involve abolishing or removing one other department, and I've yet to hear a proposal from anyone as to whether they think that should be the Department of Children or the Department of Rural Affairs, or which one they think it should be.
Second question on Marie Bailey. Has she embarrassed you and Fine Gael?
I think I've answered that question before.
Taoiseach, do you see the vote in the European elections, particularly in Northern Ireland, as a vote in favour of the back?
I'm here in Brussels, but obviously I'm keeping in touch with the count centres around the country. The European elections are shaping up to be very good for Fine Gael. We have about 30% of the vote, which is our biggest and best result since 1984. Contrast that with Fianna Fáil, who are having one of their lowest vote shares ever. It does seem we will definitely elect 3 MEPs, in fact 3 elected already, and in the hunt for 2 more seats. Very strong chance for Maria Walsh to gain a seat for us in the Northern constituency, and a possibility still for Deirdre Clune in Ireland South, and we're not conceding on that one at all.
What do you think of the demise of Sinn Féin in this election? Do you think it questions Mary's leadership? That's 2 disastrous campaigns in a row if you include the presidential one.
I think they're all issues for Sinn Féin to consider.
You've no comment on their performance, though?
I don't. I suppose the only thing that does occur to me is that the Sinn Féin political approach in the Dáil and outside has been one of very aggressive opposition, always criticising the government about everything, but not really putting forward many solutions. Take housing, for example, actively opposing and voting down all forms of housing for one form reason or another. And I think perhaps people are looking for more constructive opposition.
Taoiseach, do you ever think you'll form any about the possibility of a general election in the short to medium term? Do you regret making those comments and did they create some stability?
Sorry, say them again?
You made mention of at the weekend that a general election, you couldn't rule it out in the short to medium term. Do you regret making those comments because some have criticised that you added to the uncertainty? No,
it's a statement of fact that I can't rule out the Dáil being dissolved early because this is a minority government. What I can say is my focus is absolutely on the job, on keeping the economy strong, creating jobs, improving living standards, Brexit, housing, healthcare, all of those things. And my focus now, of course, is on Brexit and on the budget and getting those things through. So nobody need plan for an early election. It won't be one that's caused by me.
Taoiseach, do you think you'll ever beat Enda Kenny's vote record as far as percentage vote share in any sort of election?
Well, we just have in both the local and European elections. Our vote share is up in the local elections by 1.5%, and our European election vote is up 7.5%. So done it twice. Hope to do it the third time when the general election comes. Thank you.
Taoiseach, this way.